I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7:30. Roll call, William Johnston is not here, I'll say excused. Tom Graffinino.
Here.
Lynn Colligan is excused. Lisa Kreckler is
Here.
and Phil DiOrio is here. Also present, we have Stephen Kiley, Town Attorney. The first order of business tonight, we're going to review and approve the October 25th, 2023 minutes. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have one application to discuss tonight. It's 2 Westmoreland Drive. We got 2 more follow-up post-hearing letters, one from the applicants and one from their attorney. Both basically stating their cases and updating their positions. This for me is a tough one. Initially, there were a number of things requested. Some of it was an interpretation. I think it was a misunderstanding, really, about the copies of the building permits and the copies of the CFOs that they got where things were crossed out, and what that was about was just the non-payment. And so they withdrew those requests for us to take a look at that. And so there are a few things that they're requesting here, I think, that are still sort of on the books. And this is from the original letter from the attorney, interpretation and determination that the 3rd floor of the residential structure legally exists. Then there's the appeal of the denial of a building permit by the building inspector. And then there's a request for an interpretation and determination of the town code prohibiting a 3rd floor is a limitation that is more restrictive than the New York State Uniform Code and is therefore contrary to the New York State policy that a local ordinance may not be either more restrictive or less restrictive than a regulation of the New York State Uniform Code and unenforceable. I'd like to just address that one here real quickly. And our code that is applying to this here is zoning code and not the Uniform Building Code. So I don't think that this section, this request really is germane to this. Stephen, is there anything that I'm missing on that part of that?
No, I agree with you. New York State Uniform Fire Prevention and Building Code deals with construction. Ours is zoning, so I would say that's inapplicable.
Okay.
Okay.
And then the 4th thing was the interpretation about it was improper to strike the approvals, but that I think was just a misunderstanding again about the copies. And number 5 again is something about those copies. And then number 6 I think really gets to the heart of the matter of variance of the Shelter Island Town Zoning Code, which prohibits a 3rd floor in Residence A district. And they're seeking approval of the existing conditions on the 3rd floor of the property and for the 3rd floor to be used for habitation. I would say that is really the sort of the meat of this application. And I think that's really what we're here for, is for a discussion tonight of the request for an area variance to have that 3rd floor be habitable space. I don't know if anybody wants to weigh in on this, because I could go on, and I don't really want to be Mr. Monologue here. You know, here's Johnny.
I think I also have been going back and forth on this one. One point that sticks to my mind is what was issued in the C of O that states that the storage attic is not to be used as habitable space, and that was since August 21st, 1990. So historically, has not been allowed to be a habitable space. But I also understand that was 1990 and things change, and that could have been because of they didn't have the proper fire equipment. I don't know what the reason was, but things have changed since then. And I also see the fact that right now they stated the use would be to have it as like a two, maybe some bedrooms, or one could be used as a study, something like that. And the other option would be to, if they wanted those extra bedrooms, there's room to build within the building envelope. You could build onto the house.
Okay.
You could. However, that would probably cost the homeowner exponentially more money. And would that cause undue harm? You'd be expanding the footprint versus just using what's existing. I think there's an argument for both sides of that.
Tom, what are your thoughts?
Did we ever hear anything further on the fire suppression?
We did that. They submitted a letter.
Read one thing,
I don't have
that they were supposed to post 5 or 6 homes currently.
Right, and so
Are
they
they
had,
all in residential?
so most, I would say that there were a couple that are older homes predating
The bill.
yes. And I think maybe there were a couple that, they did put in this thing, but I don't know if there's, if they have a legal third floor there or not.
Also, a couple were in Bering Harbor.
Right,
Right.
it's out of our jurisdiction.
Right.
So there were 3 in the town, 2 of them were in the Heights, older homes for sure. So, from my point of view, I have a couple of concerns. And firstly, so I agree with you that when I look at the certificate of occupancy that was issued before these folks bought the house, it was clear then that was not supposed to be used as habitable space. My other concern is, we have people come up here when they want something that, we've never really done before. We're always told, don't worry, this won't establish any precedent. The person who comes and wants the same thing the next time, they say you've established a precedent. And so my concern is that if we do this, and if we allow this, that down the road, we're going to see more of this. I know, and look, these folks didn't build this house. They didn't build this 3rd floor. But I do know that in other cases, people will look at this as something that it's easier to beg forgiveness than
Right.
to ask permission. So I can't see myself approving this.
I mean, I can see it from that standpoint where we don't want all of a sudden all these houses that are being built coming and then saying, well,
Everybody's got
I
a
built
3rd
an
floor
attic, right? So now I want to convert it, and that could definitely have a negative impact on the island.
I did ask, in the building department, if there's any other similar things possibly coming out. And there is actually another house where there's a 3rd floor and there's new owners now, and it may wind up coming here. So, for me, I think I feel like it was made clear from 1990 that this was not to be habitable space. And so I can't see myself voting to allow that. Just, I see the repercussions being longer lasting. We've had the fence thing a few times,
Yes.
right?
Yep, yep.
And,
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
I
Yeah.
feel with this that if times have changed, in fact, and if in fact it's time for the town to consider allowing third stories because of what are updated fire
Fire.
suppression abilities, taller ladders on the ladder trucks, that, you know.
That's at a code level, though. That's not what we're here.
That's right. I feel like
Yeah.
the town board then, you know, when
Yep.
could in fact decide to change the code and allow third stories if they chose to. But until then, I can't see myself opening this door. I feel like it's a door that once it's open, it's like, you know, the genie's out and not going back in. So that's my take on this. I guess I could be won over, but you'd have to do some serious winning.
Oh, I'm not here to convince anything. I'm just here to discuss both sides,
Yeah.
to make the best determination that we can.
I think the precedent piece is the biggest thing that sticks for me. And I was interested in the whole fire suppression piece, and I thought that was a good bargaining chip per se. But I think if this was approved, I think that this would set the boundary, unfortunately.
Yeah. Stephen, is there anything else that you think that we need to address or discuss here?
No, well, I'll see once you guys go through the standards. I'll see if there's anything else that needs to be brought up. But
Okay. I just want to just put this here. You know, the applicants filled out an answer sheet. And the thing that I find, you know, compelling for them, it's been that way for 32 years. But, you know, and I understand that, you know, it might not have any adverse effect on their direct neighbors.
Correct.
But, you know, we have an island full of neighbors here. And I do think that it's troubling if we.
Yes, I think if you look at it in a singular, by itself, in a vacuum, I think there's arguments of like, they're not changing the exterior, like they have some positives in their favor. But when you take a step back and look at the code and how the island would be affected by this on a broader scale, there could be some changes to the community that we don't want to start doing.
I mean, like I understand the benefit to the applicant.
Yeah.
But I also understand the detriment to the community. I just feel like if this town wants to have three-story private homes in residential districts, then that should be in the code. And if it's not in the code, it seems clear to me that that's not what the town wants at this point. Anybody else want to weigh in? No? We're going to go to the videotape here.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first question is whether an undesirable change would be produced in character of in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby property.
I think this is very much like what we just said, that the whole neighborhood of Shelter Island as a whole, yes, there would be undesirable change, because then that would open possibility of other properties having 3 stories and converting their attic spaces to habitable space.
You should also evaluate it in this particular neighborhood.
Yeah, so, and I would say that, you know, as a follow-up to that, Stephen, that in fact, the other house that I spoke about with the building department is in Westmoreland as well. So I could see the door being open, but in terms of the effect on the direct next door neighbors, I don't see any negative effect there. But I would answer yes to that because it opens the door. I mean, Stephen, is that okay, or do we have to just focus on the direct neighbors there?
When you say direct neighbors, you know, obviously the most impacted are these joining neighbors, but when you're looking at neighborhood, you're looking at the 3 or 4 streets around that general vicinity. You shouldn't really be looking at the impact island.
Okay.
And the one you're saying there's an hypothetical situation that might be coming in front of you. There's some application pending in the building department. Is that an already existing converted third story, or is it one that's being proposed to be
No, I
converted?
think it's an existing converted third story.
Okay.
Whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by a feasible alternative to the variance. So I guess if you say that the benefit that they're searching for is a couple more bedrooms, I do think that there is a feasible alternative in that you could build an addition onto the house that would be in the building envelope. Whether the requested variance is substantial, I would say yes. It's the full third floor of the building. It's 890 square feet, but I don't know if that number is actually very important. Would the variance have an adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood? I would say no. It would have no effect. And whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. These folks didn't build that space. But I think it was probably made clear at some point that the space was non-habitable. So I'm going to say that yes, because they desire to use this space.
Okay, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, and also generally you inherit the sins of prior owners.
Correct, yeah. It's a buyer beware situation.
Stephen, is there anything else that you feel like we need to address here?
No, I think you did well.
All right, so I guess we're going to have a resolution on this for next week. All right. Okay, so next up, only other business is to review and approve our calendar for 2024.
We have no meeting next week. I mean, no hearings scheduled, which is required.
Okay, but we'll vote on this then. I think it's just
Yeah, well, Lynn's not here. I was hoping that she can correct this calendar, that she had any,
You want
So
to
she-
go till next?
Do you want to do that?
Why don't we
Lennon.
vote on the calendar next week?
Yeah.
okay.
All right.
But let's,
What's that?
let's,
Table it for 1 week. till-
yeah. I just want to conclude it now, because there's a lot of things contingent on this.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, I think it's good because I think Lynn saw this, but whatever, we'll wait till next week.
Okay.
All right? All right, so can I get a motion to close the meeting?
I'll make a motion to close the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, meeting's closed at